Greetings and blessings to all of our viewers. Today we should like to continue with the series of contemporary issues, and the title of the shir today is Jewish Education in Crises. Lesson from Lag BaOmer. This lesson we could derive from Lag BaOmer. So the point of departure will be Pirkei Avos, Perek Daled, Mishnah Tes Vov, where the Mishnah states, Rebbe Elazar ben Shamua Oimel, Yehi Chevoid, Talmidcha Chovev Alecha Kishaloch, Uchevoid Chaveroch, Kemoira Raboch, Umoira Raboch, Kemoira Shamayim. So Rebbe Elazar ben Shamua says, let the honor of your student be as dear to you as your own honor, and the honor of your colleague as the reverence for your teacher, for your master, for your mentor, and the reverence for your teacher, master, mentor, as the reverence of heaven. So this is a remarkable Mishnah. Mishnah formulates there are different levels of honoring one's fellow man. Of course, a teacher, a Maggid Shir, Rosh Yeshiva, has to honor his pupils. We derive this from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, as about to undertake a war against Amalek, told Yeshua, Bechar lonu anoshim, select for us warriors. So Rashi states, Hishva kvoidoi l'kvoid tamidoi. Since he said for us, so he equated his own honor with the honor and respect of Yeshua. And Rashi points out Yeshua was his Talmud. So this dates back to the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, pre-Matan Torah. This was before the giving of the Torah. This is something which is axiomatic, something which everyone understands. There has to be honor bestowed upon students, disciples. They deserve to be treated with respect, and showing them esteem, honoring them. So basically the message you're conveying a message is, we see that you have great value. You have to be treated with respect and to a degree reverence. And therefore, the Mishnah has formulated these three different interpersonal relationships with the respect that is due to each one. It's interesting that this Sfarnoi told us a very important principle that really applies to Jewish education. The Sfarnoi says as follows, and this is a translation by Rabbi Pelkowitz of the Sfarnoi. Excellent translation. The honor of your student, behold, included in the honor of God. We're all obligated to honor God, to have a reverence for God. It's called Yiras HaRoimimus, not just Yiras HaOinit, not just fear of punishment, but we should be awe-stricken with the Rebbeinu Shalom, Yiras HaKavod, tremendous reverence for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Included in that mitzvah, says the Sfarnoi, in reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is also the obligation to honor his holy things. Or in HaKodesh, Sefer Torah, Tefillin, which have intrinsic Kedusha. As the Gemara told us, these are Gufei Kedusha. The properties that they possess is intrinsic Kedusha. And therefore, they have to be honored. And this is not a separate, independent halacha, but it's included in the reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Included in that mitzvah, we extend the mitzvah, we extrapolate the mitzvah, and included in that is reverence for holy objects that have intrinsic kedusha. In addition, also his holy ones. And of course, his precious students that learn Torah, the B'nai Torah, so they are holy ones. So now the Sforno tells us something very special, something very, very unique, that Rebbe Elazar ben Shamua basically told us that we have to be very cautious, very careful to honor all Torah students on an ascending scale, in keeping with the principle of Malim B'Kodesh, Veinim Aridim. We ascend in matters of sanctity, and therefore, since we ascend in matters of sanctity, and disciples of the wise, students in a yeshiva, in a cheder, in a day school, so they are B'nai Torah. These are children that are trying their best, hopefully, to have a Jewish education and be fine, upstanding, uprighteous Jews. So therefore, let the honor of your disciple, of your student, who you might think is inferior to you, be as dear and precious to you as your own honor. And the honor of your colleague, who is your equal, should be on a level of your reverence for your teacher, Malim B'Kodesh. It should be on a higher level. We uplifted a level. We upgraded. And of course, your master, your teacher is superior to you. And the reverence of your teacher should be upgraded to be equal to the awe and reverence of heaven. And more than that, there cannot be elevation. So we see over here a very, very fascinating insight in human relationships within the hierarchy of interpersonal relationships in the world of education in Torah. So Rabbi Pelkowitz points out something very fascinating, that there is always a tendency among Rabbanim, Rosh Yeshivas, Rebbes, teachers, to inflate their own importance and deprecate the worth of others who are, so to speak, trying to learn from them Torah lessons. So therefore, Rebbe Elazar ben Shamua wants to correct this imbalance. And how do we correct it? We go to the other extreme, and we elevate each person one level higher, Malim B'Kodesh. And he urges that the disciples to honor everyone a higher level than the perceived status. That is exactly what Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Yeshua, is telling his Talmidim. Who is he speaking to? His Talmidim. And he's telling his own disciples to honor everybody a level higher than their perceived status, be it one student, colleague, or teacher, to correct this imbalance. And like the Rambam says, if there's a moral, ethical imbalance, somebody, God forbid, might feel self-righteous. He might have a type of complacency that he is the Adam HaShalem, he's a complete, perfect being, and everybody else is inferior to him. So therefore, we have to do the opposite to correct this terrible imbalance and make all individuals that are, as it were, perceived to be on a lower level, we have to elevate them to a higher level. As we said a moment ago, the purpose of this is simply to give over a message. There should be vibrations of the value that these individuals possess. This will uplift them, upgrade them, inspire them, motivate them to reach even higher levels. This is the way that the Ovadia Sforno has explained this Mishnah. However, very beautiful explanation. We have a different version of this Mishnah in the old Girsa. Rabbeinu Yonah brings it down partially. Medrash Shmuel brings down that this is basically a new version of the Mishnah. There was an older version as well. And the older version, there were two minor, that we'll soon see, are major differences. Instead of Rebbe Elazar ben Shamua, it says Rebbe Elazar ben Reb Shimon. He was the son of the great Reb Shimon bar Yochai. Lag Boimer, that's coming up. So we celebrate Yom Hilula of Reb Shimon. Everyone goes to Miron. It was a very, very great celebration. That is one difference. Second difference is that we say Yehi Chavoy Talmidcha, the honor of your student. We're addressing a Rosh Hashiva, a Rebbe teacher who has disciples, has students. Chovev Alecha should be beloved upon you, Kishalach, like your own covet, Ukidachavroch, and like the honor of your colleague. It doesn't say that the honor of your student should be as dear to you as your own honor, but it adds the second part of the middle section, that the honor of your disciple be as dear and precious to you as your own honor and the honor of your colleague. These are the two distinctions between the version that we have today and the old version. And of course, we do not understand the old version. Question naturally arises that there are different levels of obligations, that one is obligated to different individuals. There's different levels of obligations. No question about it. From the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, there was a very, very important ethical, moral standard to reach of showing honor to the disciples and to the Talmidim. Rosh Yeshivas, Manhigim, all types of people that are on a higher level of the Jewish hierarchy cannot be remiss in showing honor, distinction, almost homage to people that in the hierarchy, in the social standing of the Jewish hierarchy, are on a lower level. There's no question about it. However, the Girsa of Rabbeinu Yoina, the old Girsa, is very, very difficult to understand. And the question that we'll ask will be based on a very fascinating Gemara that is quite well known. That's a Gemara in Eruvin in Daf Nun Daled. So the Gemara in Eruvin says there was a great Amoira, his name was Rav Preda, who had a pupil whom he taught the lesson 400 times before the latter could master it. It took him 400 times of laborious, arduous effort in order to master the lesson. There was a certain day where unexpectedly someone came in and asked Rav Preda, he requested of him to attend to a mitzvah, a religious matter. And this person interrupted the lesson. This was in the middle of the lesson. Somebody came in unexpected and asked Rav Preda to participate in the Dvar Mitzvah. From that moment, the student became confused. And he actually thought that each moment it could be Rav Preda will leave him and attend to the religious matter. Therefore, he could not concentrate. So they learned about 400 times, and it didn't work this time. So Rav Preda understood he was disturbed, he couldn't concentrate. So he said, now I'm not going to leave for the Dvar Mitzvah, and we'll learn another 400 times. So he learned with them 800 times, patiently reviewed the lesson 800 times. A Baskol emanated, it issued forth, and said, Rav Preda, do you personally prefer that 400 years shall be added to your life, and it'll be on a high quality of life? Or that you and your generation will not have a Arichas Yama, will not have extra years to your life, but all of you and your generation will be privileged to have a share in the world to come. So, of course, Rav Preda, not being self-centered, having no ego whatsoever, answered, I and my generation shall be privileged to have a share in the world to come. That's what I prefer. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, give them both. So we have over here a remarkable story in the Talmud. And of course, the question naturally arises, before we connect it to our topic of discussion, there's a type of peripheral question insofar as our overview and focus is concerned that arises. And that is, why did the Baskel, the heavenly voice, offer such a generous proposition to Rav Preda? Why not to the Talmud? We understand from our humble point of view that this Talmud undertook every day an unbelievable undertaking, Herculean. He knew in advance that it will take him 400 times laborious effort to understand the lesson of the day. Remarkable. It's absolutely heroic, Herculean. So why was he not offered this proposition in addition to Rav Preda? He also had to have tremendous patience, tremendous perseverance, tremendous determination. These are very lofty attributes in a person. The answer would appear to be that, basically speaking, insofar as his own inspiration and motivation is concerned, he wouldn't have learned one time. That which he was able to persevere 400 times till he fathomed the lesson, the understanding of the lesson that he was being taught. So each time he really wanted to give up. And Rav Preda, in addition to teaching him how to inspire him, how to use many, many psychological tactics in order to get him involved. So that which he learned 400 times is not a merit that the Talmud has, because each time he learned was due to the unique, special inspiration of Rav Preda. So the question, insofar as our topic of discussion is concerned, is a very simple question. Is it possible to fathom? Is it possible to understand from a pure halachic point of view that Rav Preda, insofar as his obligation and responsibility to honor and show respect for his disciple, so the level of that obligation should be expressed on the same level as the respect that he is due to his colleague, Reb Zera, that Reb Zera and Rav Preda learned together all of their life. They developed and grew together in spirituality, and the dizzying heights that Rav Preda grew and developed to was, of course, to a large extent due to his colleague Reb Zera. So he owes him a unique gratitude and loyalty for all of the input that his colleague and any other colleague of a great distinguished Rebbe would have, and it's due to him. So obviously, we understand logically, with clear, distinct Torah thinking, that the level of the mechuyavos, of the obligation to honor, respect his colleague, who he profited and benefited so much from, is much greater than the level of honoring his student. Very difficult to understand. That's the old Girsa. Medrash Shmuel brings it down, Rabbeinu Yonah brings it down as well. So perhaps, in order to answer this question, we could now focus our attention on the very famous Gemara in Yevomis, Samach Beis. There the Yevamos tells us that Rebbe Kiva had 24,000 Talmidim. And they filled all of Eretz Yisrael with Torah. Unfortunately, all of them died Beperek Echad in one period of time. And the reason, they did not show covet respect one to another. The world was desolate. Until Rebbe Kiva in his old age came, the Rabbi Seinish Bedoraim, and he taught them. They were Reb Meir, Reb Yehuda, Reb Yossi, Reb Shimon, Reb Elazar ben Shamua. And we do Torah, and these were the Talmidim. These 5 Talmidim, they were the ones that reestablished the Torah, and that which we have, a Torah Shebal Peh, is from these 5 Talmidim of Rebbe Kiva. They're the ones that ensure that there should be a continuity of Torah Shebal Peh. They, of course, had a substitute for 24,000 Talmidim, not an easy undertaking. So first and foremost, we have to repeat this. When it says, we do not understand exactly what took place. Literally, it means they didn't show respect one to another. That cannot be accepted in the simple understanding. The Rosh Yeshiva Zecher Tzaddik, the Kodesh Levrocha, would say that when we're talking about these Tanoim, Kedoshei Elyoim, so we're talking about 24,000 Talmidim that emanated from the Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim. They came from the Holy of Holies. And anyone that would sit by the table of Rebbe Kiva for 1 week would be absorbed with Torah, Yiras Shamayim, Midas Toivos, that would last an entire lifetime. And he would also have the capacity to perform Tchias HaMesim. So these are the individuals that we're dealing with. It is impossible to accept the Gemara Kipshuta. We do not learn in such a way, and we needed a Rosh Yeshiva of the great stature, the Baron Keller, to explain this to us. We have to also understand the tragedy here, like the Baron pointed out, that every day Rebbe Kiva had to attend 500 funerals. If we take a mathematical equation, 24,000 over 48, 49 days comes out to just about 500 funerals. And we have to also mention what the Rosh Yeshiva says, that Rebbe Kiva was very unique. Because if, God forbid, a person has a ben yochid, he has an only son and he loses him, so it's an overwhelming, overpowering tragedy. Rebbe Kiva had 24,000 Talmidim, and each one, Rebbe Kiva related as a ben yochid. He was a perfect example of what is expected of a Rebbe in Sefer Yehei Kvoi Talmidoch Chovolech Kishalach B'Brachos Gedachavrach. He was the paradigmatic example, because each one of them was like a ben yochid, was like a only son to Rebbe Kiva. So we cannot begin to fathom the overwhelming tragedy that befell them. Now, as we said a moment ago, that befell Rebbe Kiva. As we said a moment ago, we don't understand this Gemara. We just say over the words, however, insofar as we're concerned, it's possible to derive a lesson from this Gemara. And that, of course, is in Yonah D'Yomo, what we're dealing with presently. And that is the Gemara insofar as Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is concerned. That's the Gemara in Shabbos. We're quite familiar with the Gemara that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and his son went and hid in a cave for 12 years. They studied the whole day, When it was time for prayers, they robed, covered themselves, prayed, and then put off their garments again, so they shouldn't wear out. And they dwelled in sand for 12 years learning Torah. After 12 years, Eliyahu Hanavi came to the entrance and exclaimed that who will inform the son of Yochai, the emperor is dead and his decree is annulled, so you're not in danger anymore. So they emerged from the cave. And interestingly they saw people that were plowing and sowing. And all of a sudden they exclaimed, you abandon and forsake learning Torah, which is the eternal life, and engage in life temporal. Anywhere they cast their eyes, that place was burned. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, unbelievable. You return to your cave. Why? Because what did you go out of the cave? The Hachivas love me to destroy my world. I want such a world. Why do you come out and destroy it with your supernatural powers that you gained the 12 years that you were in the cave? So they returned, and they said, we're only going to be there for 12 months, because that's Mishpat Rishayim. We don't understand such an expression. They understood it was a punishment for the evil that they did, burning down the sections that they saw. We'll soon see the addition that we're omitting now for a few minutes. So the question naturally arises. We do not understand this Gemara at all. We can honestly believe that we are superior to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. We spoke about superiority, inferiority, different levels of people, right? As far as the station in life is concerned, the interpersonal relationship with the other people. So we can honestly say that we're superior to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and Reb Elazar ben Ari. We can really, really be happy with ourselves, because we do not need any correction. We don't have to go to a ma'orah, we don't have to go to a cave, and afterwards, obviously, the Pshat of the Gemara is the 13th year, somehow or other, they'll be able to come out to the world and they'll be able to tolerate a normal pattern of behavior in the world, that people worked for a living. They did not have to work for a living because they were miraculously sustained through a tree of carobs and water. So their existence was anhoganissus, was miraculous. They devoted themselves only to Torah. Therefore, they could not tolerate seeing Jewish people working for a living. So we can tolerate the world. On the contrary, we're people that praise, people that work, people that go to business, people that succeed in business. We can live with them. We can tolerate such a world. We are not suspected, God forbid, of taking our eyes and casting a glance on any place that it'll be burned, even if we had such powers. We can live with the world. We need no correction, no rehabilitation, nothing. Number two, which makes very little sense, what will they accomplish? They'll go back to the cave. What will they achieve by going back to the cave? They'll be even on a higher level of sanctity. And when they reach that higher level of sanctity, they'll come out the 13th year. So with their gaze, since they reach even higher levels, create a dizzying guys, and with their gaze, they'll destroy the whole world, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want. That's what he told them to go back. So we do not understand this. Beyond us. So l'chura, we would have to say that that's clear as the day that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not want Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, Elazar Benoy, to tolerate the materialistic world the way we do. We live with this world. We're involved with the world of goods. Of course, the sensible world of goods, the here and now, does not exhaust itself in so far as our meaning of life is concerned. We understand that this is no more than a passageway. Our avodas Hashem is ultimately to get to the world to come, no question about that. But the journey is an arduous journey, and along the way, we actually give a lot of value to goods of this world and the materialistic world, the world of the here and now, the sensible world, is something which is Taifas Mokam Bayas, which has a very valuable, or not very valuable, but it's indeed a very valuable virtue by us. That is what Min HaShamayim they did not want Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and his son to come to. They wanted they should be spiritual beings, holy beings on the highest madrega possible. And we know that Chazal told us many places in Zayar, Tikkunei Zayar, Raya Mehemna, all the Kabbalistic books, that the Malachim and Srafim, Lamalo, the Malachim Mailo, could not fathom how these two individuals reach such lofty heights, le'elo, more than the Malachim. Their spirituality was so great that the Malachim were mekana, they were jealous that Basar V'Dam, a Yelud Isha, could reach such dizzying heights, such lofty heights. So they went in the 13th year. We said before, they went in the 13th year to the Mara. They'll come out on higher levels, no question about it. They came out on the highest level possible. Because in that 13th year, they were able to go into the Heicholois HaKedusha of Gan Eden Lamalo. They actually entered, the Neshamis entered the great Heicholois, the sanctity and the sanctums of Tachas Kisei HaKavod. And what level did they reach? They reached the ultimate level of Hadbei. They were able, literally, to come to the level of Mahu Af Atov Alachta B'Drachov in Betati Yodei, going the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hadbei, cling to the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Ma HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mechabe Dalim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu respects and has a reverence for poor people in Ruchnius, poor people in spirituality, not materialistically poor people. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu appreciates every single small ma'aseh mitzvah that a Jew does. It's a reach nichayach lefanov, like the pasuk says. The verse said, it's a sweet odor for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does reach nichayach mean? So Rashi says, nachas ruach. It's such a sweet, pleasant feeling that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has, a nachas ruach. She'amarti v'nases mitzayni. I said a commandment. Could be a very small meiser, small mitzvah. V'nases mitzayni. So that is a nachas ruach lefonov. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu respects and reveres every small meiser that a Jew does. A person, b'shiflus madrego, is on the lowest madrego possible. Nevertheless, if he does a small meiser mitzvah, so in heaven there's a storm, there's a Raj Gadol, there's great noises, there's Kodesh Ubrokim, there's shouting, thunder, and lightning that's attached to this mitzvah. We're not aware of it, obviously. We're not in this world. This world is Tomim V'Nelami Itanu. It's only concealed from us. We just are saying over the word. But Shimba Yochai and Rabbi Elazar reached that. They felt it, they experienced it, they saw, perceived how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechabed, that Ma'aseh mitzvah of every single Jew. Lebal Yidach Kol Nidach. No Jew is rejected. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves every single Jew, unlimited, unquestionable. And every single Jew, regardless of how low he descends, if he does a small Ma'aseh mitzvah, so the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechabed him. He did something unique, special, and all of the malachim were willing and are willing to this day to sacrifice their station as angels of heaven, Malachai Ashari, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to come down to this world to do one mitzvah. Therefore, we understand what happened afterwards. This was Ben Hashemayim a test, and they passed the test. Shimba Yochai passed the test with flying colors. They came out the 13th year. So what was the first thing they saw? Before they saw people plowing and harvesting, sowing. So now they saw something else. What did they see the 13th year? They saw an old person right before sunset on the eve of Shabbos, a worker, a Pashut person, running because he wanted to get home before Shabbos, and was holding 2 bundles of myrtle, hadassim. So they asked, what are these for? So they said, this is the honor of Shabbos, covered Shabbos. So they said, but one should suffice you. No, one is for Zachar, one is for Shomer, one is corresponding to remember, and one is to observe. Said the great Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, see how precious are the commandments to Bnei Yisrael, Chavivim Bnei Yisrael. Every mitzvah, even the smallest, minutest mitzvah, is beloved by Klal Yisrael, and it's 1,000,000 times more beloved by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thereat, their minds were tranquilized, they were relaxed, they could live with the world because they achieved the madrega of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that He tolerates this world despite the fact that there's people are materialistic, makes no difference. Bal Yidach Kol Nidach, every single Jew is accepted by HaKadosh Baruch Hu regardless of where he's holding, and every single good deed that he does, every single command that he fulfills is awesome in Shemaim. As we mentioned a moment ago, we're not aware of this, we don't feel this, but Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was aware of it. And it could be, insofar as we're concerned, that's the Pshat in the Gemara in Yevomis, Shelanagu covered zealous for the small minor things. They felt it was not deserving of respect. And unfortunately, that was an error. Referring back to the Mishnah and the Girsa of Rabbeinu Yoina and the Medrash Shmuel, so that's clear as the day that the levels of honor and respect, veneration, that one is due the other, one person to the other person, that his mechuyavis has to be expressed. So we cannot compare a disciple, a student, to a colleague. If 2 people in a yeshiva, a Maggid Shir has to respect the Maggid Shir more than a Talmud. However, the key word in the formulation is chaviv. The cover, the honor due, as much honor and respect that a Rebbe is obligated to express to a Talmud has to be with the same qualitative love, chavivus, with the same emotional impact that he has to his colleague that might be responsible for his aliyah, his ascent in Ruchnias. Even though he has a tremendous gratitude and a chiyuv, an obligation gratitude, but it should be with the same seriousness. There should never be a hesach hadas. He should not omit it on Mishkavli Baleilos at nighttime before he goes to sleep. He should take self-introspection, self-criticism. Did he fulfill that level, regardless of whatever the level is, that he owes that disciple? Did he show him the importance of how much he values him? So that would be one possible shot to understand the question, and to answer the question. But it's also possible to say that we don't have to say this answer. We could say that many, many times it's very, very possible that to your student, to your disciple, if you're Rav of a shul, to your balabas, you owe him, al pidin Torah, the level of veneration that you owe to your colleague. How is that possible? You don't benefit as much. You didn't profit as much. Your colleague might be responsible for your exceptional station in Ruchnius, and your Talmud is surely not very pasha. Because many a time, there's an extra portion of honor, respect you have to pay to your Talmud. And the reason is a very simple reason, and this is something which Jewish educators must realize. That if you actually try to clarify what's going on with this Talmud, what his trials and tribulations are, so you will see that perhaps you, with all of your Torah education and with the levels that you have reached in Torah, perhaps you would not have that determination, that persistence to be able to overwhelm the vicious vicissitude that this individual has, the difficult conditions and circumstances, and you would not come to his madrega. He was able to overpower the circumstances, even though he's only a Talmud, and perhaps he's not even a star pupil, but he deserves the honor and respect, al pidin, that your colleague does to reach wherever he reached, despite such great obstacles, such great impediments. And in conclusion, tell you a story that we were involved in. For 25 years, we had a yeshiva called Nezerah Torah. It's a Hasidic yeshiva. And a Hasidic yeshiva, no bacher is expelled, regardless of how he's acting, regardless of how difficult he is. We tried to educate him. There was one bacher we were not successful, we failed. And he was a disruptive force in the yeshiva. So I was personally responsible for him. Couldn't handle the situation, send him to Meiri Virabi, one of the Soidus of Yerushalayim, from the secret people in Jerusalem, great person. So he spoke with him, and this bacher for 20 minutes told him all of his criticism of us, the yeshiva, people, family, etc. 20 minutes nonstop. Afterwards, he asked Rabbi Yosef Sandberg to comment. So Rabbi Yosef Sandberg said, I can only say one thing. First, I thank you for telling me this. Number two, I thank you once again, because now I'll have an extra kavanah, I'll have an extra intention when I say Moedem Anachnu Loch in the Shemoneh Esrei 3 times a day. Thank you, Rebbeinu Shalom. So I'll have an extra kavanah thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu and expressing my gratitude that I'm not a bacher in this generation, that I'm an old timer, and I did not have the trials and tribulations that you have today. And to be quite honest with you, it's possible that if I had the trials and tribulations that you have, and I would be a bacher in this generation, I would not be able to overcome them the way you overcame them. And I have a tremendous respect for you, and it borders on veneration. Of course, the bacher got better. This is Migdolei Yisrael. he has a proper perspective. And at this juncture, this is something which Jewish educators must take to heart, and hopefully we'll have a great new generation of Torah leaders that will come out of the fact that we know how to show reverence, how to show respect to the Talmidim. We analyze, we try to explore, we try to find out what goes on behind the scenes, and then we'll see that they are indeed very great people, and they're going to be worthy of being the great leaders of the next generation. Thank you very much all.